What is up, guys? Doing another one down tips video. This one is going to be focused on actual play. Alright, so we'll just go ahead and start up a little Ukrainian job, something not too stressful that I can hopefully talk about while I'm actually doing it. I'm usually not very good at live commentary, but this won't necessarily be live commentary. I'll just kind of be playing in the back seat while I talk out loud. So, I don't know, advantage point. So, whenever you're going into a one-down heist, it's very important to think about, what kind of skills you're going to need for this particular heist. I talked about that in the builds video. Pardon me. So once you've already got that lined out, you've coordinated with your teammates, you've done all that shebang, and you're actually going into the heist, the things that you want to keep in mind, more often than not, and I had a piece of paper that had all this stuff on it so I could keep track of all my thoughts. And then I threw it in the garbage can because I'm a dummy, and I was like, I don't need that to keep track of my thoughts. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. Whatever. Being unprepared for videos is excellent. Oh, I'm going to do this loud, right, so I can shoot this guy. I missed my jump because I'm dumb. Whatever. Anyway. So, first and foremost, the thing that's more important than anything else in one down is taking cover. In Overkill and below, it's actually not that important for you to take cover because you can make builds that effectively make you nearly invincible. This extends even to like Death Wish and Mayhem difficulties to an extent. Less so, but definitely in one down you're going to be taking cover more than you would on any other difficulty. That sounds like a silly thing to say, but so many players just don't realize how much the game changes into not necessarily a cover-based shooter, but that was the idea Overkill was trying to go with when they made the one-down difficulty, I believe. Required highly coordinated teams moving from cover to cover in order to... I didn't like that another drill. In order to push objectives. Taking cover is really important. Taking cover is important due to the armor gating mechanic in this game. I might do a separate video solely dedicated to armor gating, although probably not, because I could probably just talk about it now, honestly. Actually, that's right next on my list. In vain with taking cover, of course, the purpose of taking cover, not only to avoid damage, is also used for the purpose of armor gating. What armor gating is, as I've mentioned in previous videos, if you are not aware, armor gating is a name of a mechanic, not really a name of a mechanic, is a name of a method in this game where you are able to regenerate your armor while you're behind cover. When you take damage in this game, the only enemy unit that can damage you while you're damage your health while your shields are still up, while your armor is still up, are snipers. Other enemy units, if they shoot a single bullet at you, you will only take armor damage whether you have 10 million armor or you have 1 armor. You will only take damage up to the amount of armor that you have, and none of that damage is carried over to your health. When it looks like you're getting one shot by enemy units, you're actually getting shot multiple times. It's probably just in the span of a fraction of a second. So stuff like that does happen, just due to how, how many enemies there are in this difficulty and how quickly they shoot at you and how accurate they are and so on. However, that is how armor gating works. This mechanic persists and is never overridden except for the case of snipers. The reason armor gating is so important is because when you're ducking in and out of cover, you're allowing yourself to be able to take shots without taking health damage. So when your armor goes all the way down, it is important to, if you can, immediately throw yourself into cover. Now, of course, it can be kind of hard to keep track of that constantly, and you'll get caught in situations where you might not be able to throw yourself into cover, and that's okay. I'm not saying that you never need to go down in one down, because clearly I do all the time, and a lot of other people do. But the key to not going down nearly as much is to practice armor gating, to when your armor breaks, which you can hear from... There are sound effects in the game that you can listen to that will allow you to hear when your armor breaks and when your armor regens. If you just, pay close attention while it's happening, you'll notice it, regardless. So that way you don't have to actually look at your armor bar. Uh-oh. That's also why I use the bullseye in my builds. in pretty much all of my builds because it allows me to armor gate effectively. So as I was doing with that bulldozer a minute ago, I was aiming at him and he shot me, but since I was aiming at him and I hit his head while he was shooting at me, I got a small portion of my armor back, so I wasn't, so I didn't go down. Or I was able to take another shot before I started taking health damage, and then would probably go down because my health is so low at this point I could probably only take 1 or 2 shots to my health. Right. So armor gating is really important, utilizing skills like Bullseye to kind of increase your survivability is really important. Again, moving in and out of cover. Sorry, I got distracted for a second. Hard to focus. Anyway, also having to look at this paper. Another important thing to understand about one down is assault wave mechanics. It's probably going to be next to impossible for me to explain all the fine details of assault wave mechanics while I'm also playing and doing it from memory, because I don't have them all completely memorized. The only parts I really concern myself with are the important parts, which are like the main assault phase when you're in the process of being attacked, and also whenever probably the most important part of the assault phase that we'll all be concerned about, which is fade. The fade part of the assault wave is when enemy units stop spawning, and because they stop spawning, well, obviously that's a good thing. Whatever enemy units that are on the map will persist, and once the enemy unit number drops below 7, or once a certain amount of time has passed, the fade phase will end. A very good tactic for one down, and just in general, but primarily for one down, especially to do objectives and push a heist, is to purposefully try to keep the assault wave in fade for as long as possible so that you can do objectives mostly unimpeded by enemies. This is something you can really see put to use in my undercover solo, because I got a really long assault wave lock where there were only where there were only a handful of shields on the map, and maybe this is gonna be kind of weird. Oh no, I gotta reload this. No, they stole my kill. All right, cool. Oh snap! I don't have Messiah. Oh, this is not my solo build. I was using my team build. Oh well, whatever. Forgot. That's kind of embarrassing. Whatever. Well, I only had the one down now that I think of it, so that's not too bad, I guess. Whatever. We'll just go do a different heist while I keep talking. So what was I saying? Right. So locking assault waves and fade is a very important part of being able to like move and do objectives. Realizing when the heist goes in fade, when you notice that enemy units aren't spawning, when the music starts dying down a little bit, things like that. This is my solo contractor build. I feel very, very silly right now. I'm not gonna lie. Alright, that's better. So, yes, assault waves and understanding how fade works is pretty important. Being able to recognize it's probably the most important part. Even if you can't get an assault a fade lock every time fade happens, that's perfectly fine. I don't know many people that do, but recognizing when fade happens and realizing that that is the time to push objectives is very important. Moving past that, it's also really important to know the difference, or not the difference, but knowing when to move versus when to camp. Trying to recognize a situation and seeing that, okay, there's like 5 enemies immediately to my left, and there's an escape path on my right. So, do I camp, kill the enemies, and then move, or do I just try to take the escape path and run? Of course, that's a very basic situation, probably a really bad example, honestly. But it's something to keep in mind as you're going through these heists is, in what areas is it safe to camp and what areas is it better to move. What maps in general is it better to move versus camping? There are some maps where it's actually just better to stay on the move as opposed to trying to lock yourself down in certain locations because the enemy spawns can pin you. And then you won't be able to move anywhere and you'll have to fight your way out, which can really be an undertaking on one down. So just getting good at recognizing when the good times to move are and when they aren't is important. That's something that honestly just kind of comes with playing a lot and getting a lot of experience for the game. Of course, that might not be necessary. You might not have to have lots of experience with the game. Oh, whoops. Does nobody care? That's kind of frightening that nobody just nobody cares about that. Okay, anyway. So yeah, as you progress, you know, and you start playing the game more, and I'm making it sound like it's this really fine-tuned skill that takes a lot of practicing and getting used to. It's really not. It's pretty self-explanatory and pretty intuitive. It's just not something you can easily explain to somebody. You just really have to get a feel for it. Just knowing when to move and when not to move. Of course, coordinating with your team when to do so, moving as a unit, is also, of course, extraordinarily helpful. You really don't want to separate yourself from your team too drastically, because it can, once the entire team gets separated, things can go south pretty quickly. So, of course, you always want to be in a position where you can... where you can be nearby your teammates. Oh, crud. That's almost really bad. Oh, they can aim at me over this. Bummer. I didn't come into this prepared. I should have brought like a grenade launcher so I could blow things up. I really wasn't thinking. Actually, I haven't done this one down solo before. I just haven't taken the time. Really? Not like this. This is embarrassing. Okay, see, now you guys get to see all the behind-the-scenes crud that I go through as I'm recording videos like this. I'm a fraud. I'm not as good as some of you guys think that I am. These take more than one attempt sometimes. Like I said, I just wasn't prepared for that one. I'll use a different build. Let's see, I don't want to use this build. I'll use this one since it has the grenade launchers with it. Anyway. Lost my train of thought again. Darn it. That's fine. Just talking about knowing when to move versus when to camp. Oh, okay. Always having an escape option is important. You never need to put yourself in a situation where getting out is going to be difficult. In the room that I was in a minute ago, I really didn't have any escape options. I kind of just had to leave the room and it was wide open in the front. Sometimes you have to put yourselves in those situations because you're not really given any other choice. However, you always want to have your path out kind of pre-planned ahead. You want to know, okay, if I get pinned right here, what direction am I going to take in order to get out of here? Of course, that's not always something you'll have to actively think about. You'll just kind of keep it in the back of your mind. A lot of these things are, you know, people ask for one-down tips, and I try to think of, you know, things to tell them that are super practical and that they can use. A lot of it is just kind of common sense type stuff, you know. But always having an escape option, even if you don't really think about doing it, a lot of people will just instinctively do it, you know, running away from bad situations and getting away from large groups of enemies. Sometimes you may opt to stay and fight the enemies instead, and sometimes that's actually the better option. It just depends on the circumstance. So, next on the list... oops, if... Oh, killed him anyway. Darn it. Next on the list... Should I kill that guy before I look? Targeting priorities. So, targeting priorities, of course, are... what enemies do you target first? Strictly speaking, I actually have a pretty... like a list that I... Dang it! A list that I stick to pretty much all the time, that I almost never deviate from. Gosh darn it. I'm really not good at focusing and talking at the same time. Very poor at it. Don't be like this. It's gonna be like this. I'm gonna fail again. On Mallcrasher. No, I'm not. Nice. Okay. But targeting priorities. Medics should always be your primary targeting priority if they're in a close enough vicinity to you and if they're close to enemies that you're trying to kill. Of course, because they just... well, they'll heal enemy units and they'll prevent you from killing other enemy units. Now, if there's a taser, or like if there's a medic way over where that taser is and there's like 5 enemies right in front of you, target the enemies that are a more immediate threat to you than the medic that is way over in no man's land. I mean, clearly. Again, that's kind of common sense, but it's something that, you know, if you tell people always target medics first, some people will just take that extremely literally and they'll be like, well, I can only aim at medics first. I see a medic, so they will deviate from any other targets and aim at them. That does sound brain dead, but I mean, there are people who just take the advice that to heart. Clearly, these tasers are in close vicinity to me. I want to take them out first. They're an immediate threat. Tasers are second on my list for immediate targets. Cloakers would probably be right up there, except for solo play. I don't have to focus on them too much. After tasers or after medics and tasers, probably, I don't even want to say dozers next, because other enemy units seem more dangerous. I really don't have many issues from dozers. Dozers can be a problem because they usually come in pairs, and because they sprint now and you can't stun them with anything. Dozers used to be a complete, joke, essentially. Now they're actually worth some salt to an extent. However, medics and tasers still pose, and cloakers, if you're doing team play, also pose a higher threat than I believe dozers do. So on the scale of specials, dozers probably rank second lowest in terms of who you need to aim for and who you need to aim for first. I put shield at the bottom because I always try to have an out for my come on. That's fine. Yay! So yeah, shields, like I said in my weapons video, you always want to have a weapon that can probably deal with shields pretty readily and pretty easily. So that's definitely something to keep in mind, especially since you will have those options available to you. To kill the shields, they should be one of your final targeting priorities, since you can just take out large groups of shields pretty swiftly. And of course, common enemy units fall below that. Any enemy that is in a super close vicinity to you should become your main target priority. Just use a little bit of common sense when it comes to targeting enemies. Immediate threats come first, and then, you go down your order of killing specials operations. If you want to look at it like that. Alright. Oh, okay, now for more team-oriented tips. If you're playing with randoms, like people you don't know, try to keep the attitude of sticking with one or two people at all times, and just use like a buddy system. You don't have to say, hey man, I'm gonna stick on you and stay with you throughout all of the heist. That might not be a circumstance that you'll find yourself in. However, you can just, of course, to yourself say, okay, I'm gonna stick by the host, because he seems like a pretty good player and seems pretty aware of what's going on. I'm going to try to stay close to him, stay in vicinity to him, keep him up, and, not in the state of being downed if I can, and, he'll help me, and so on and so forth. You always want to be a team player. A solo mentality will get you in trouble a lot of times because you'll want to deviate away from the team. Even if you're carrying a team pretty hard, it's still important to focus on the team and try to help your teammates as much as possible. This is a co-op game. You're not getting more rewards by, being a hero and trying to do the whole heist by yourself and just leaving your teammates in the dust constantly. So work with your team, coordinate. It's really rewarding to just successfully coordinate with your teams. If you're playing with randoms, sometimes randoms can be a little disagreeable. I know that. I've had some very disagreeable randoms before, even if I'm trying to be helpful, vocally helpful, helpful in the chat, or just helpful as a player in general. Some people are just kind of hateful. Take that with a grain of salt. Some people are just jerks, and some people won't be cooperative, and, that's just their fault as a player. Is it good? No. But is there a lot you can do about it? No. But the people that do coordinate and who actually, want to play this game and have a good time, you'll find that they'll probably be more than willing to cooperate with you. There are, of course, also sometimes elitist players. I know some newcomers to this game feel like a lot of higher infamy players, or players who have a lot of play time, tend to be a little more elitist in their style of play, and they'll seem like they're bossing you around, and they're telling you how to do things and whatever. Sometimes there's good intentions to it, other times they just don't want you to mess up their heist. If that bothers you a lot, of course you can always host your own lobbies. This isn't like a PSA telling you how to deal with people, but of course this is just how the community generally is in my experience. And in order to better coordinate with people, it's always best to kind of have an accepting attitude towards everybody, even if they're being total crapheads. Okay, well, that's pretty easy. Almost lost it twice, but that's alright. Okay. Oh, speaking about skills in particular, using Swan Song to put yourself in better places where you can recover, either via your own Messiah charges or to where your enemies, or where your friends can revive you a bit easier, is an extremely potent tactic. That's why I think Swan Song is so useful, not just because of the of the endless magazine, but because you're able to position yourself better into stronger positions because you're in moments of invulnerability, even though you have a lot less movement speed. Let's see. Kiting enemies is really effective, but I kind of mentioned that earlier. There are some maps it's better to run around and lead enemies as opposed to try to hold out and fight, because there might not be many defensible locations. A place that comes to mind, Birth of Sky is kind of like that. If you watch my Birth of Sky run, I try to avoid the enemies and get to the other end of the map so they have to chase me over there and then just kind of run around in circles. I do hold out in certain instances, but for the most part I just try to run around the heist. Also, using utilities placed as assets on the map is really important if you can get to them. So instead of, if there's a medic bag like 20 meters away, instead of laying down your medic bag in your position just for convenience, if you think you can get over there by throwing a concussion grenade to cover your movement, then run over to that medic bag and try to cover it, or ask your teammates to cover you. There's no shame in being like, hey man, can you cover me while I hit this med bag, because if not, I go into custody and then I can't cover you if you need me to cover you later. Just things like that. I'm trying to think of any like other little last minute tidbits of just general tips to throw in. Let's see. Oh, killing enemies versus stunning enemies. As you see in a lot of my one-down solos, I use the locomotive to stun enemies and keep them in place so that I can pull out my cavity and kill them. And someone was asking me about that not too terribly long ago. Just the day before this recording, or maybe even the day of. The days are melding together. I'm not getting enough sleep here of late. Anyway, using a combo like the cavity and the locomotive, using a tool to stun enemies, or maybe you're using like the bows to use poison to stun enemies, and then using like a throwable to kill enemies, like the throwing knives or something. I don't know. Stunning enemies is a very potent tool on one down, because even if you just have one person with stunning tools, such as if you're running a Dragon's Breath locomotive with a team of people, stunning as many enemies as you possibly can in a room so that your teammates can aim at those enemies and kill them. Will it count towards your kill count? No. Is there an assist count? No. But at the end of the day, the kill count really doesn't matter all that much. And if you're helping your teammates and you're helping your teammates' survivability, of course, that's the most important thing. Stunning enemies on one down is extremely potent, simply because of the amount of health that the enemies have, and any way that you can stop them in their tracks and make it more difficult for them, of course, is extremely viable. So if you're using a combination of like the cavity and the locomotive, you could stun enemies and regular units with the locomotive, which would kill shields and the other weaker units with 720 health. For the armored units, you could then switch to the cavity, pop a few shots in them, or just run away and leave them to burn. Or you could just hit them with a locomotive again, which would eventually do enough damage to burn them and kill them, usually in 2 shots, if I'm not mistaken. So, you know, sometimes it's better to have a build that's more centered around killing everything faster than it can kill you, which can be difficult on one down. It can be done, but it can be a little difficult. Or you can have weapon setups where you prioritize stunning enemies and then killing them while they're stunned, versus just trying to kill them before they kill you. It's easier to do the kill them before they kill you with a team, simply due to the fact that there are more of you and you can focus on different targets. For something like solo, it's a bit easier to have the stunning tools because of all the enemies that are coming at you at once. So anyway, guys, I think that about wraps it up for the general tips video. I might do more specific topics in the future if people ask me about it. So if somebody was like, hey, would you care doing a video about the specifics of assault wave mechanics or something like that, then I'll pop open the long guide, give it a read through again, take some notes down, and maybe do a video specifically on that. Of course, most of these topics can be found online, whether it's on Reddit, whether it's on the Steam forums, and the long guide. I've referenced that a whole bunch, or whatever. And of course, if all else fails, just ask other players. Just be like, hey man, do you know about X thing? And if they don't, just ask another player or whatever. Of course, I'm always available for questions in the comments at any point in time, personal messages, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Steam. I don't care at all. It might take me a while to get to it sometimes because I tend to be kind of busy. Regardless, thank you guys so much for watching this small mini-series on one down tips. I hope to do more in the future. Maybe I can do some stealth tips in the future. I don't know. I'm not super good at stealth, but I might do it anyway. Anyways, that was my tips video. Thank you guys so much for watching.